Hello and welcome to Women in Post, a podcast and web series for women in post-production by Women in Post-Production. Today on the show, we'll be speaking with Lena.
I've decided to learn as much as possible and to learn exactly what my boss is doing, thinking with him and being like, oh, I think this is what we're going to do next. And if you're in that mindset, then you can have that job.
Hey, Lena, thanks for joining us on the show today. If you don't mind, I thought we could start out talking about how you got involved in post-production and film in the first place.
Yeah, I studied film production in college, and I very quickly realized that I was only employable in Los Angeles. And so I moved out here, and I was lucky enough to find my first sort of studio corporate gig with Sony in their worldwide creative content department. So I started my career there, and from then transitioned to a couple of freelancing things, and ultimately landed at a company called Trailer Park, which is mainly a theatrical advertising agency. They do all kinds of branded and advertising content now. But I worked in their creative content department as well. So I produced theatrical marketing campaigns primarily. So that's press kits, trailers, behind the scenes, and that's still what I do freelance here and there, although my focus has shifted almost exclusively to Regal, to my tech company.
Okay, so tell us about that. How did you get involved in building something like this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I came up with the idea years ago because as a producer, or in our line of work, as I'm sure you're aware, so much depends on finding the right team for a specific project. And especially if it's something that, is not your day-to-day, or you're going to a city that is not your own, or you might not have existing connections, it is and was for me very challenging to find the right talent, the right, professionals to work with. And in a lot of situations, your whole career is on the line if you don't find the right people. So a lot of my anxiety came from that when I was producing. And so I looked around and I saw there's a lot of databases and job boards within our industry, but nothing really that takes us from finding the right talent through the production or post-production process through project completion. And so I pitched my friend on this, who I've known since kindergarten, actually, my friend Philip Brown. And he is a software engineer in Silicon Valley. And we got a drink together and talked about it, and he quit his job a year later. And, yeah, and he...
The next day he quit his job. Oh my
next day would have been very dramatic, and we should probably go with that story. But no, it took a year. We were on the phone, every other day for a while. He was trying some stuff on the side, and then ultimately decided that he was going to do this full time and just build the staffing and project management platform for freelancers in our industry. And I'm very thankful and humbled that he did. So that's sort of how the idea came about, and how it ultimately now has come together. Because I found an amazing also engineer who was willing to work with me on this. So the two of us co-founded the company, and now we're sort of in private beta, which means we have our first couple hundred test users who are giving us feedback, and we're about to launch our official beta in the next month or so, which is exciting.
So how is Ringle different than maybe somebody who's experienced freelancing on Upwork or other kind of Fiverr, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the first key difference I would note is that we're specific to creative industries. So media, anyone who's a content creator. That said, there are a ton of other job boards and directories that are also only for this industry. And I think what sets us apart is, well, a couple of things. A, we're invite only. So you can only be admitted to the platform if you've been referred by another member or you've been vetted by us. Secondly, something that has been problematic for me in the past is that in a lot of these other websites, you have to decide whether you're a client or a freelancer. Like, am I going to hire or be hired?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but at least in my line of work, I have to do both. I am sometimes hired as a producer, a field producer, but then I also have to hire a crew, depending on the project. And as an editor, you might have to hire your own assistant editor, but you're also hired. So within our platform, anyone who is an approved admitted member can both create a project and hire people into it and be hired into projects if that's what they've selected. Another thing that we have is a feedback loop. So when you're done, when you've collaborated with a team or even just one person, at the end of the project, we will ask you, would you work with this person again, yes or no? And we receive that feedback. And of course, there's going to be people that you don't want to work with again, and that's a personal thing, and that's fine. But if we receive, 90% of people, it's, 10 people out of 11 don't, or 9 out of 10 don't want to work with you, then that's a trend. So then we would have to consider, we might reach out and see whether you can stay within our platform. The main idea behind that being is we don't want to be excluding anyone, but we want it to be of value to our members. So if there's a consistent trend of someone maybe not acting professionally or not doing the job as advertised, then we have to kind of reassess that. And we've decided that that's something we'll consistently do based on feedback that our members give us. And then, just overall, I think our workflow is pretty unique because we do, you can find your team with us. You can browse all of our members. You can find someone who's right for the job. But also, once you hire them, we give you this whole host of project management tools. So you can set deadlines, you can group message your team, you get instant notifications when, someone accepts your job offer or vice versa when you're offered a job. So we are definitely similar to a lot of different sites, but I think that we found a unique way to kind of roll all of those workflows and tools into one, hopefully helpful platform.
So as somebody who has been an editor and been a producer and is now doing, building this website, hosting a huge platform, what does that feel like to move from one genre to another? Do you feel like you've kind of left post-production entirely? Like, have you transformed into someone new? And is it kind of like, it's a weird way of thinking about it, but it just sounds so different. What does that feel like for you?
It is an interesting shift. I think there are a lot of similarities I think producing is managing in a way. So there's some overlap there. And then there's the obvious overlap of me still working in this industry. So a lot of the talent that I'm recruiting for our platform, I've worked with before, right, in my previous jobs. But it's a fair question. And I think it's something that I had to come to terms with a little bit, because when your identity is so tied up with your career, as a lot of us, especially those of us who chose maybe a creative medium, it was a very quick answer for me, like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a producer, for film marketing or for advertising or branded or whatever. And when that shifted, it was a little bit more of it was almost harder to answer that question, as you did, at the beginning of this podcast, which is, what are you, a filmmaker, entrepreneur? How do you see yourself? And I think that is a question that, we don't really ask ourselves too often until there is a shift like this. And I think it's like scary in a way, because you're not sure where you fit in anymore, but also super exciting because you get to learn an entire new field and industry. And it's sort of more and more the latter, I think, that I'm excited to be learning more, and hopefully, using that knowledge to and bringing that to our industry and making other people's lives slightly easier, at least when it comes to, scheduling, workflow, and finding the right people for a job.
So I'm thinking of one particular website that I've used before called, what was it? Oh, Frameo.
Mm-hmm.
Have you used that before?
What is it, freemium?
It's called Framio, and like you can post your project online, and people can review it. Like um, you can share it with anybody, and they can leave like markers on it with comments and stuff. Do you guys do that too?
So you're talking about a service, right, where you can share like a video, and then the client or whoever could review it and leave little like, oh, at, time code 120, like this is the note that I have, right? We're not doing that yet. Right now, our focus is not as much on sharing assets via our platform and then having like communication based around that, and more about just finding a team and communicating with them. But that is something that we're thinking about adding maybe down the line, along with a whole host of other things that are sort of in the pipeline that we haven't been able to attack yet because we have a very, very small team. But yeah, I know what you mean, and I think that would be maybe an interesting thing to add down the line, which is that, users can reference a project directly and leave comments within that.
Do you think that the way that people will use your site is more connecting with local service providers, or will it be mostly remote work?
I'm thinking it'll be a combination. I think some people, and we'll have to see where it goes, but I think some people will probably use it primarily to find new talent. Maybe if they're traveling, maybe if they don't know, what film crew to hire in Austin, if they live in LA or vice versa. I think other people might use it as more of a project management tool, right? So that way they can check in. We have a favorites option, so you can have all of your favorite freelancers that you like to work with on one page, and you can just directly book them or hold them into a project. So depending on what you're using it for, I think the answer to your question might vary, but I think overall, hopefully it'll be a way for people to find new creative collaborators like worldwide, right? So that would be the hope, is that we can support that. And even if you were to travel to Berlin, you could log in and update your location and say you're available to work there now. So when the next job blast comes through, you could find a job anywhere in the world.
It's almost like a filmmaking Uber.
Exactly. Yes.
So I get that it's an invitation platform.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make connections with people all over the world to join your platform? And how many people are kind of in line to get in the first place?
Yes, both amazing questions. I've been lucky because I grew up sort of biculturally anyway. I went to a German school in DC growing up. My whole family's German. I have a lot of international friends. We were just in Africa shooting a documentary like 2 years ago. So I've been very lucky to make connections all around the world. And then also lucky to have those people still want to work with me and still be willing to, come on something like this and then refer their extended networks to us, which is fantastic. So that would be the first way, I think, and it's just about activating those networks and their extended networks. But then also, we've had a lot of applicants just because we've been on social media, we've been on different Facebook groups, we've been on Instagram, and we get followers and requests worldwide now, which is amazing. And I'm always super excited to see, where if we get a new camera operator in Istanbul or something, that always makes me extremely happy. So that's how we've been approaching our user base. And then at some point, we're going to open up invites as well for all of our existing users so they can refer, and build out our network that way.
Okay.
But right now we have about 800 people that are waiting, that have, requested an invite that we've vetted and approved, either because we've worked with them in some capacity, we know someone who's worked with them in some capacity, or because they submitted work that we found to be impressive. And then the last layer is sort of, we have to curate how many positions there are for each, industry. So we do want to make sure that a lot of positions are covered. And so that's the last bit of consideration. But yeah, so all that said, we have about 800 people right now who are waiting for our official beta launch. And that's, I can't wait to, I guess, throw that match, and see what happens when people are actually filtering onto that platform.
Hopefully it explodes in a good way. And
I hope so.
that's all, 800 people is a lot of people. I mean, how do you go to sleep? How do you relax?
Well, right now they're just sitting and waiting for me to bring them on. So right now I'm still in that blissful period where I'm dealing with, like 100 or 200 people that are testing our website at any given time, but not the full amount of users that we've approved that are on the website yet. So when that happens, I think there will be a lot more sleepless nights. I'm not really that out now. I still have many of those currently, but I think if anything, it'll definitely get harder to sleep when they come aboard. But I think I'm so excited by the concept of having this community of creatives and supporting these sort of creative connections as well and collaborations that I don't know. It's, if anything, it's not like a stressful sleepless night, or only a little bit, but mainly it's from the excitement of what this could grow into.
Yeah. So you've been building it out now for about did you say about a year?
Yeah, the idea I've had, I probably had like 4 years ago. My business partner went full time on it. So the engineer and co-founder, Philip Brown, he came on board full time 2 years ago. So he's been working on this for 2 years. And then the first couple of users we brought on beginning of this year. So this next step, I think, is going to be the most thrilling one, which is to see what people think when we bring them on for the first time, and users that we don't personally know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Say somebody wanted to follow in your footsteps. They're thinking about launching something themselves, or maybe just getting to the kind of career that the producer kind of career that you've had. What kind of advice do you have for other women out there who are trying to do what you've done?
Let's take maybe the production route first. I think in every position that I've ever had, I've decided to learn as much, to be as curious as possible, and to learn exactly what my boss is doing, right? So like, how are they making that decision? Why are we moving the shot here? Why are they choosing this music cue, right? Like, so all those questions, I think I was genuinely curious in, but then also that helped me in that I could make those calls ultimately, right? So I could be a little bit not ahead of my boss, but thinking with him and being like, oh, I think this is what we're going to do next. And if you're in that mindset, then you can have that job. That's the next step, right? Is like, if you can think that way. So I think that's always the first thing that I tell people is like, try to see if you can make all those decisions, because you're going to have to get to the next level. For starting your own company, I think that's a journey that I'm still very much at the beginning of, or I don't know I guess beginning is relative, but a couple of years in, I think it's just what the most comforting thing that I've found is that everyone that's starting a business or starting a new chapter, is that everyone is equally terrified and doesn't really know the answer to a lot of things. You're really starting at the beginning again. At every single turn, right? Because even though I feel very confident in the career that I built before, this is something totally different, and you have to be pretty humble in saying, okay, I don't know anything about this. So I think in that sense, I would say you just have to be comfortable being a beginner in every turn. If you can do that and remain curious and not frustrated, and still excited about what you're starting or building, I think then that's a pretty good mindset to have.
I have heard that when you're starting a company, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Have you found that to be true?
I think yes and no. I think there have been a lot of times when me and my partner have looked at each other and, in the beginning you're like, oh, why has no one done this yet? Why not? This is such a great, and then we would answer our own question, because, we would try to figure out a problem and it seemed insurmountable, or we're like, why? We would run ourselves into like a dead end, just on the logistics side, or like, yeah, we get it. This is why no one's done this yet. This is hard to figure out for an entire industry.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I've also found that when you're building something that people are interested in and there's a need for, and as I'm sure you found, even with your podcast, certain things actually just align, which is also, I think a valuable thing to see and learn is that if you're chasing something and people are inspired by that and interested enough, then they will help you and they can help you forge that path. So I think, yes, like a lot of things go wrong and I certainly have learned that lesson too. But then I think the positive that comes out of it too is that people will help you figure it out if you're clear about where you want to go,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, Lena, thank you so much for coming on the show today. If our listeners are interested in maybe checking out Wrangle and learning more about it, where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can visit our website, which is Wrangle, WRANGLE.work, and they can just hit the request invite button and send us their information, and we'll review it. And hopefully they want to and can join our creative community.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me on and for doing what you do. I'm excited to see where your podcast goes.
Thanks, Lena. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this week's episode, give us a like, leave us a question or comment, and share with your friends. Your viewership and support helps promote women working in film. Follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, and join our Patreon community. Interested in being a guest or sponsor on the show? Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. See you next week on Women in Post.